Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules. And at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome back to BOA The Revival. Very excited about tonight's show. It feels a little magical, I'm going to be honest. There's some kismet happening with this show on multiple levels. As I was telling Bridget here, how this interview came about in the first place is, as you all know, I am the news editor for Coast to Coast AM, and every day I search for paranormal news through Google, often through keywords, all the different keywords, UFO, UAP, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, ghost, haunted, the whole 9 yards, including the word paranormal. So back in June, I am searching for paranormal news, and I come upon this article in the, it says Sun Gazette here in the URL. Yep. Oh, here it is right here. It's the Williamsport Sun Gazette. So I was like, I did like a double take because the headline was just "Woman to Launch Paranormal Podcast." And it was like the weirdest, vaguest headline I've ever seen. And I'm like, what? What is the news here? That a woman is launching the paranormal podcast? That a woman is launching a paranormal podcast? I'm like, what is... This is the weirdest. It's not even local woman. It's just woman to launch paranormal podcast. It's like, fucking, what is this? So I even went so far as to share it on my Twitter. And I'm like, this is the strangest headline I've ever seen. It's vaguely hilarious. It is just so hilariously vague. So I have to tip my cap to Matthew Courter, who is the author of the article, because it worked. It actually worked. I'm like, I need to know more about this woman who's going to launch a paranormal podcast. So I clicked on the link, and that brought me to Bridget Callahan, also known as Ms. B, of the show, the new show, Eerie Echoes with Ms. B, which launched at the end of June. And with her tonight is her producer, Diego Sanchez. And so I was like, so I'm looking into this. I'm reading the article, and I was really struck by the passion from Bridget in the article, and the depth of interest and the commitment that both of them have to this program. They're going all in on this, and I'm like, this is crazy. This is awesome. So then I go and watch the first episode, and I am completely blown away by what they're doing. Because if anything, the headline undersold what they're doing. Because woman to launch paranormal podcast. No. It's far more complicated and exhaustive than that. Because I'm sure if you go on the other distribution channels like Spotify or whatever, you just get the sound. If you go on the YouTube, this is like a full-on like TV show. This is like a well-produced show with on-site investigations and interviews, and it's really, really compelling and really, really well done. And I'm like, I gotta get Ms. B on the show here. I gotta talk to Ms. B, and really put over this program and bring it up to the Binnall of America listeners. And as I said, it feels like a magical evening here, because as I was getting ready to talk to Bridget tonight, she mentioned Diego, and I'm like, I was thinking, I said I should have mentioned that Diego can come and join us. So fortunately, as luck would have it, because I think part of it was like, I'm not going to spring this on Diego now. You might, it's already the day of the show. Luckily, Diego's around tonight, and Diego's joined us as well. So we got Bridget, Ms. B, and Diego Sanchez, the producer here on Binnall of America. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm a huge fan of what you already got going on.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes.
So we'll start out with Ms. B. So Bridget, tell us the bio, the background. Who is Bridget Callahan? How did how did you get interested in all this? And very often I sort of bring this, the way I frame it to the new guest is like, lots of us are interested in this stuff, but a smaller percentage of people decide to make the leap and sort of get in there and put themselves out there and create content and be a part of the conversation on that end of the spectrum. So tell us that, who is Bridget Callahan? How'd you get interested in all this? And what made you decide to launch Eerie Echoes with Ms. B alongside Diego?
So maybe you can tell by my name, I'm Irish. And the Irish folklore is rich with ghost stories and things like that. I had a couple of experiences when I was really young, when both my grandfathers passed away. That made me realize that, ghosts exist and they're valid and there's an energy. So when my grandfathers passed away, I started looking more at the energy of things. And it just never made sense to me that we can be here and so vibrant and then all of a sudden completely gone, because it never made sense. So ghost stories of all kinds, all different cultures, all of that, extremely fascinated with. And New Orleans is actually like my soul city. I love that city. My dad would tell me when I was little, we'd get in fights because I tell him I wanted to go back to New Orleans, and he kept trying to tell me more.
Yeah.
So that started the fascination with the ghosts. And then I was a huge fan of Carl Sagan. When I was in 4th grade, my parents bought me the Cosmos book. And for Christmas one year, and every Christmas I start reading it over again, hoping one day I'll be able to understand what he's talking about. But it's also just the concept that we are the only creatures in the world that are intelligent and sentient and all of those things is extremely egotistical of us. Because do they look like us? No. Do they act like us? No. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. So every time I hear a good ghost story or a good UFO sighting, which Diego turned me on to the Enigma app, and I've been checking that out every day because I just love seeing where this stuff is coming up.
Yeah.
So that's how I got started in it. I have a degree in psychology, minor in English from King's College in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I'm the manager of a little theater in Canton, Pennsylvania called the Rialto Theater. And Diego and I put together these shows and I go out and interview people. So. Yeah,
they're pretty awesome. They really are. And Diego, how'd you get mixed up in all this?
Well, as a small kid, I was the weirdo with a fascination for all kinds of stuff as well. And I had a lot of experiences with the paranormal as a young kid. And so it's been a lifelong fascination for me personally. And then it's so funny because late last year, we started talking about what we could do. And I was like, she was telling me about the theater that she manages.
Yeah.
And she may have mentioned that there was that there's a friend of hers that lives at the theater whose name is Lou. And Lou actually has been living in the theater for much longer than most of us have been around. And so, I was fascinated with that. And I said I wanted to visit. So I went to go visit the theater and I went to visit her. And what ended up happening is that we ended up talking about how we wanted to develop something that was going to be exciting and fun and interesting, but still different than what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And so we came up with Eerie Echoes like on the first day, and we started writing, and writing episodes in the theater, in the not haunted theater. And we just we're like, okay, so then when are we going to release this? How are we going to do this? And this is what we landed on. And not very soon after that, not very far after that, and I'll tell you guys this story. Bridget knows the story. I'll tell you the story a little bit later. I actually had a very profound UFO experience in Texas. This was the beginning of April. And it was so eye-opening, and I knew that we wanted to do something, and we knew already what we wanted to do for our first couple of episodes. But, it was like, okay, when we do the UFO episode, we have to talk about the paradigm shift that is happening with us right now, because I've seen things before in the sky that I couldn't necessarily explain. There was a long time ago, I guess not a long time ago, like something like 5-6 years ago, I saw what looked like a giant triangle flying across the sky. But the sky was dark. It was a new moon. There was no light from the moon or anything like that. So, and I saw this and I was like, well, it had to be something, because I'm not going crazy, or maybe I am, but whatever it was, I saw this thing. It was in southern Georgia. It was across the sky, and it was huge, right? And so I had heard about the Phoenix Lights and all that stuff. So I'm like, well, maybe it's something like that, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when we decided to do this, the paranormal and all of these things, and especially, I guess, Bridget and I throwing each other like things to watch and things like that. It was, I guess, the Jeremy Corbell and Lou Elizondo talking about how there's something more. Especially Lou, I would say that there's something more, but we don't know. But we can't just say that it's from another planet. It's aliens traveling across the universe. There's so many other available options that it could be. Right. That, and then somebody else, I think it was Ross Coulthart, he was talking about how, maybe there's not a lot of difference between paranormal experiences like ghosts or, poltergeists and beings from other interdimensional beings or things like that. Maybe there's not a lot of big difference between those kinds of things. And so, we knew that we wanted to do that. We wanted to talk about these things, and we wanted to do it we didn't want to go ghost hunting, even though we might do some of that for fun. We didn't want to do the things that other people were doing. We wanted to come from a point of history, and using the things that have been around. Things like, for this episode, we were talking about, and we'll go into it more in our 4th episode. But in this episode that we just launched a couple days ago, we talk about a haunting that happened in the late 1890s in Kecksburg, and how the local newspapers in Pittsburgh were writing about this, in Pennsylvania. They were writing about this and were giving pretty interesting, detailed explanations of what they were seeing, which was people being literally launched out of a room, or bed sheets being thrown around and things like that. So, this is late 1800s. This is 1890s, I think.
1892.
1892?
Yep.
And so, yeah, there's, with all of these different things, we're like, yeah, this is what we definitely want to do. We definitely want to go into this.
Yeah, well, it's tremendous. Go ahead, Bridget.
Well, and I was going to say, and the history of the spaces are very important to us as in general. So like when we did the first episode, Barclay Mountain, that's in my backyard. And I wanted to make sure that everybody's heard the ghost stories. Everybody knows, everybody who's ever been to Barclay has had some experience. I had experiences while we were there. But there's a rich history as to that would, in my opinion, lead to such experiences, like with the coal mines and yes, there was whole families wiped out within a couple of days. Well, whole families were working in the mines. Father, son, and nephew all get wiped out because of a mining accident. So that's really important to me. And Diego and I talked about it because my big thing when we were talking about it is I never want to be disrespectful of a space or a person. Right. Diego and I have our fun, like with the introduction and with the news and things like that. But when it comes down to telling somebody's story, we want to make sure that we handle it with respect because they're willing to share their story with us. And that's so important to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I found really interesting about, like I said, the show, the YouTube version that's the real, I don't know who is Diego the one who crafts this? I'm beyond, this is like so beyond what I could possibly do. Like when I watched it, I'm like, this is so amazing. Like I said, it's like a TV show. It's really tremendous. So, and what I really like is you guys go right on the scene at the Barclay Cemetery. Like I said, I wasn't expecting that when I when I read "Woman to Launch Paranormal Podcast." I was watching the thing, and I'm like, "Oh, this is way more. This is way more. This is way more than what I was expecting. This is really awesome." What I thought was interesting. Go ahead.
Well, no, and Diego, he has a background in music production and video production. So we both, like in the episode for Kecksburg, Diego wasn't able to go. So it's me and a friend of mine shooting the interviews there. And then we send the stuff to Diego. And then he makes it look really pretty and really fun. Yeah. And he adds all the graphics and things like that.
It's tremendous. It's tremendous.
Definitely a collaborative.
Yes.
We're equal partners on this.
Yeah. Well, it's really awesome. I tip my hat to you guys. It's really good. Now, in that first episode, you guys go to the Barclay Cemetery. What I thought was really remarkable is that you, Bridget, you have a tour with Greg Taylor, who's a local ghost researcher. And during this tour of the cemetery, you seem to have some strange stuff happen to you right as it's happening. And it was like, wow, this is really...
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about what went down while you were walking around the cemetery. We'll start with Bridget on this one.
So Greg is actually a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. And when Diego and I first decided that we were going to do this, I was talking to Greg because I know he likes ghost stories, and explained this is what we were doing, and we were going to do Barclay first. And then he went into his experience. And that's the one thing I think I'm really lucky with. People don't have a problem telling me their stuff because they know I'm going to hold it in the space it needs to be held in. Mm-hmm. So I asked him if he'd be our first interviewee. He agreed to it. We went up and, he was telling about an experience he had with his nephew and his kiddos when they were little. And then we got to the cemetery, and the whole time I was at the cemetery, I could have sworn I heard trains. Now like locomotion. I heard trains.
Okay. Trains. Yeah.
Yes. Trains. And there hasn't been a train on that mountain over 100 years. So that was in the back of my mind. And then in the one scene in particular where I look like I'm going through some stuff, which I was, it just like, there was a lot of noise in my head, like a lot of things wanting to be heard, be seen. I broke out. It was hot. Oh my gosh. That week was like the hottest week in Pennsylvania. And I'm in cold sweat. I'm just trying to get through it. And it's just like, okay, we need to be done because I need to sit down and just kind of collect myself for a moment, because there was things out of the corner of my eye. You know how when things happen out of the corner of your eye and you look at and it disappears on you? Those were all over. I'm hearing the trains, and there's something in my head that's just like wants to be heard, and I don't know what they want me to say. So it was overwhelming, but it was also like, okay, nothing, at no point did I feel terrified or scared. It was just more of we need to wrap this up because we need to be respectful of the space.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. Yeah. At one point, you're like, okay, are we done now? Because you could tell you seemed really overwhelmed by that you were experiencing something. Now, Diego, you also go ahead.
And when you look at it, I'm standing, there's nothing around me except for a grave in the back. Like I'm in a clear space. Yeah. It
was like real in a sense. You know what I mean? It was like more real than you see on these ghost hunting TV shows. It was like, okay, Ms. B's going through something right now. Like Ms. B is going through something right now. And I believe it. And this is wild. And it was riveting. It really was riveting. Like I said, when I watched that first episode, I'm like, I'm a fan. I'm going to be watching this all the time. Now, Diego, did you also, you had a camera glitch that happened, inexplicable camera glitch that happened while you were filming up there, but did you sort of have any of the same feelings of sort of no pun intended, eeriness while you guys were in that cemetery?
Yes. So the feeling of the entire place was like Bridget, Miss B had said. It's not scary, but it is very. You could feel sadness, and you can feel it's loud. I think Bridget said that too. But it's loud. Like you hear things that you're not hearing. It's just there's a lot of activity that's happening there. While I was there, while I was filming, I heard kids laughing, and that happened a few times. But faint and kind of like blended into the wind almost. So it's like, is it the wind? Is it kids? But man, it sounded like kids, right? It sounded like a bunch of kids laughing, and in different areas, in different places. And then another time when, because we had gone there a few times to film this. Another time we were sitting at our little production desk that we had set up, outside of the cemetery itself, but still in the cemetery area. And I saw somebody walk from, the trees in the distance, and you could see the person walk from behind a tree, and then you could see them walk behind another tree, but they didn't come in from anywhere, and they didn't go out from it. So all I saw was what I could have sworn was a person that walked from one tree to the next, but that's all that happened.
Wow. And
there was nobody there. See, the one thing about Barclay Mountain is that there are people that do hike it, that walk there and that hike up, but those are serious hikes. I think it's like something like 2 or 3 miles just to get up the mountain, and that's going up a mountain. And not to mention, going through the trees. I mean, if you went through the trees, through the bush, through the jungle, the forest part of this, it would take you hours to get through it because it gets really, really dense. But yeah, just taking the road and just walking there is a few miles. I would say it's like 3 miles. Wow. And then it's another almost half a mile, I would say, from the road to the cemetery itself. And so, when people came around, because every now and then there was a couple people that would show up, you knew that they were there because you see them coming in from the only area that there's an actual place to come in. And I couldn't, and I've, like I said, I've had experiences as a kid where I saw things that weren't there. And so this was very, very similar to that, where it's like, you just see somebody coming out, not out of the tree, but out from behind the tree, and then get lost as they pass the second tree.
Yeah, exactly. And if it was like a hiker, you would have kind of heard them coming. You would have seen them coming. They probably would have said something. They're not going to just go walk from one tree, like sneak around, walk, it's not fathomable. But yeah, that's really weird.
And that area also has rattlesnakes.
Rattlesnakes?
Yes. So you're not just going to be out in the bush roaming around without making noise, because you're going to want to make sure they know you're coming and you can hear them. I mean, because there was a couple times I was like, guys, I'm going to go sit outside because I'm hearing something I don't want to hear. But yeah, so it's not like there would just be people randomly and very quietly walking behind the cemetery space, because it's dangerous to a certain
exactly. And so this Barclay, this was a town. This was a coal mining town that's now I guess no pun intended, now a ghost town, right? It's no longer like a coal mining town that they don't use anymore.
The only thing that's left of Barclay is the cemetery now.
Ah, okay.
And
some foundations maybe here and there, but really it's just the cemetery.
Yeah, and it's very well maintained by the Leroy Heritage Museum. The director there, Matt Carl, will do walks up there. It was Barclay and LeQuinn. They were the two towns. LeQuinn was more labor or lumber, and Barclay was the coal. And the coal miners would walk down to LeQuinn because it had the saloon, it had the hotel, it was the town, and then Barclay was kind of like the suburb. And when the coal mines dried up, there was nothing left. People had to leave. And Matt and his organization make sure that cemetery is very well taken care of. Because when I was in high school, which was longer ago than I'd like to admit, it was overgrown, and it was a trek to get in there, and they have made sure that it's being honored the way that it should be honored.
That's great. That's really great. That's and so are you, Diego? Now, are you from the same area? You've mentioned Texas, Georgia. I think before we started the show, Miss B said you came up for 2 weeks to work on the show. So
Yeah.
where you sound like you're roaming around a little bit. Where are you located?
I'm actually based out of Florida. I live
okay.
in the west coast of Florida, outside of Tampa.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I lived in North Carolina for a little bit and things like that. But I do enjoy some traveling. And earlier this year I took a camping vacation to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the nights while I was there with a friend. We were both looking up at the sky because we had this giant sky in front of us, right?
Right.
And we had 4 instances, one after the other, like separated by maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes, where the first thing that we saw was a light traveling across the sky from the left all the way to the right, the expanse of the sky. But when I calculated what that could be, it would have to have been flying thousands of miles an hour to get from the way that it got from one side to the other. Because the light was, in relative to us, it was just a light. It was just a ball of light. So whatever that was, was flying across the sky. And then when it got to the edge of the sky, the horizon, so to speak, on the right side of us, it took off completely 90-degree angle from where it was going, away from us.
Oh, weird.
I can't even explain to you the amount of sky that it covered. Mm-hmm. It had to have been hundreds of miles in a quarter of a second.
Wow.
Like really, 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 really fast.
Yeah. This is the side we were talking about earlier.
Maybe more like a second or two. It's what it actually, in about 2 seconds, it did the entire expanse of the sky.
Wow.
And then we saw another light that did something similar, but it was more zigzaggy. And then we saw this is the strangest thing I've seen. And, it's so funny because I've always been really careful about sharing experiences that I've had because we've lived in a world where, it's like you're the crazy person if you believe in this stuff, right?
Right, yeah.
And so
you're in good company here, though. You're among friends.
So, the thing is that I was so moved by what I saw that I literally called one of my friends in the music business and literally told him the exact thing. And basically what I saw is, at first I thought it was like a Coast Guard plane, right? Flying kind of low. I would say maybe 150 feet up in the air. And when you hear the plane, it doesn't sound like one of those kinds of old school Coast Guard planes. And the sound of it seemed like it was really high up in the air, not 150 feet. I could see the plane, but you could see also the lights on the plane. It had like an array of lights in the front, right? And as it passed over us, because it passed directly over us, the lights seemed to, wherever I looked at, whatever the angle of the plane was, the lights were facing me the entire time. So when it was far away, the lights were pointing in our direction. And when it was above us, the lights were, so however I looked at the plane, it looked exactly the same, except that, and I'm going to sound like a crazy person, but except that right above my head, it changed into a triangle and flew away.
Oh, wow. That's a vivid sighting. That's fantastic.
It was absolutely just so vivid. That's really a great word for it. Because I was like, And the thing is that I know that it was real because my friend that I was with, we both described exactly the same thing that we were looking at as we were seeing it.
Yeah.
And we were like, and we weren't like high or anything like that. We were just what is happening? And it was like that. It was like a few moments like that, one after the other in one single night. And then we went to a further area where it was more rural, trying to see more, but we never saw anything again.
Yeah, as I was going to ask you, what's the mood like when that happens? I don't know. Were you kind of like freaked out, or were you like? It sounded more like you were enticed, like you wanted to see more of this.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine, like if I was out, I'd be a little freaked out, like out in the middle of the Texas wilderness and or whatever, you see this thing. And I think, I'm sure that's all you could think about or talk about the rest of the night.
The first thing that I thought about was, what is it that happened in my brain at this very moment that I did not run for my phone and film this? That's my first thought. And then, like you said, I called Bridget, I think, that night.
Mm-hmm.
So like, oh my God, I literally saw this thing. I saw it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Were you jealous, Bridget?
Yes, I was. Very.
So how did you two connect in the first place then?
Okay.
I used to be in a band called Morris and Poe. Well, I am in a band called Morris and Poe, but back then I was in this band that we were traveling, and Bridget was at Williamsport,
Pennsylvania College of Technology as a student activities coordinator.
We had some really good music going on at the time, and we still do, of course. But we had some great music happening, and we were on the radio a lot, in college radio, all over the area at the time. And Bridget booked our band to play. And we ended up, after we did the show, we went to, Bridget took us to a radio station, and we ended up talking. And then, I went back on the road and did some more tour dates, but we always stayed in touch. And, a few years passed, and we're still in touch, and we're still friends. And she introduces me to other friends in the music business that she's working with and that are close to her. And one of the friends that she had introduced me to was somebody that I became really good friends with, that was one of her closest friends. Mm-hmm. And he passed away last year. He passed away in September of last year. Is that right, Bridge?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so, we bonded over that, obviously, of course, because that was really hard. It was one of her closest friends, and it was a very good friend of mine. And we were both very in touch with him, because he knew he was going to go, but we were very in touch with him the last few months that he was with us. And so, we would call each other after we spoke to him, and, we'd like, how's he doing, and things like that. And,
right.
So Bridget and I have been friends for, I would say, 20 something years.
Oh, wow.
20 years.
Wow.
20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Since I was a little wee one.
And that led to the creation of this show. So there's all kinds of like magic here behind
Yes, there is.
It's like tonight's show and the kismet of discovering Bridget and Diego being able to come on the show, and sort of how you guys became friends. It's all very synchronistic and interesting and very, very cool. Now, so the second episode, which just got released this week. Now, folks are hearing this show in September, so by then there'll probably be an August episode that's come out. But we'll talk about that maybe as we get further into the thing. But
sure.
The new one that just dropped a couple days ago is High Strangeness, and it deals with Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. And what I really loved about this is Bridget. Again, like I was blown away by. Again, this is more than a podcast. This is like a presentation, a video presentation. So when I'm watching the second episode, there's Stan Gordon, there's Ray Sismansky, there's Ron Struble from the Kecksburg Festival. And Bridget interviews all these folks in the show. And it's an hour-long program. And it's really, really good. It is really enlightening and interesting. And I guess what made you tackle Kecksburg as your second topic for the second episode?
In talking with Diego, we knew, like you said before, the second episode, we wanted to do a UFO episode, and Diego's the one who mentioned Kecksburg. I had heard a little bit about it. Sometimes, with the history in your own home, in your own space, you're not necessarily that familiar with it.
Yep.
And so if you look at a map of Pennsylvania, I'm like almost dead center in the middle near the New York border.
Okay.
So I'm about 30 miles south of the New York border. Mm-hmm. And Kecksburg seems so far away, because it's like 3.5 hours from me, which is ridiculous because I'll get in the car and drive to New York City with no problem, and that's 4. But he mentioned it. I started doing some research on it, was really fascinated with it. And then Diego was like, okay, well, we had the launch party at the Crooked Goose in Williamsport, which was just amazing. And then he looked at me and said, okay, I'm going to head to Kecksburg now, and then I'm going to drive back to Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So drove out to Kecksburg, had a couple interesting instances out there. And then just the whole, if you're in Pennsylvania and you get a chance, you have to go to this UFO festival. Because not only are there such amazing speakers like the ones you mentioned, who were all so gracious for this crazy lady who just walked up to him and said, hey, can I get an interview? But it's a really cool family. Like, everybody's super sweet, obviously, because they agreed to do the interviews, but everybody there is just there to have a good time and enjoy each other's company and share stories. And so I was really happy that it turned out the way it did.
Yeah. And this is the Chestnut Ridge area, right? The infamous Chestnut Ridge. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean about the festival atmosphere. I've been talking about this on the show for a while now, because there's a festival up here for the Exeter UFO incident that's very much like that. And we're seeing that more and more. You get your Mothman Festival. There's the McMinnville Festival. My friend Aaron Goulias and the folks from the Infinite Rabbit Hole, they just recently had one in Wisconsin festival.
Okay.
And that's kind of the new way of doing things in a lot of ways, is these town-wide festivals where you celebrate the UFO history, but it's like for everybody. It's family friendly. You got family events and fun stuff like that going on.
There was
that's really cool.
Yeah, there was bands there. They had a parade that reenacted when the military took it out. And just like, it's been 19 years, and they incorporated the UFO part into it not that long ago, like maybe 18 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, and people just get to come and have fun.
Yeah, that's
and learn something. And learn something.
Exactly. So, to jump back to how the impetus for this episode came about, Ms. B said that you kind of were the brainchild for this, the going towards Kecksburg, looking at Kecksburg. So, Diego, so what planted the seed? Ironically enough, because the ship does look like a seed. What planted the seed for Kecksburg in your mind and made you say, all right, let's dig into Kecksburg?
I've heard of the Kecksburg incident quite a few times, obviously, throughout my life. It was something that's, that always pops up. I've seen the episodes on, funny enough, I saw the episode on Unsolved Mysteries, and, I saw this kind of stuff. And so it's always been there. People talk about Roswell and all that stuff, but when we were there, I was like, hey, you know what? Kecksburg is not that far away from me, who drove from Florida. Right? It's only 3.5 hours. We can totally do that. And so it was such an interesting thing. And we were very good we definitely knew what we wanted when we were there. And when we were talking about it, we knew what we wanted to do with the episode, and we knew that we wanted to center it around Kecksburg. But that being said, I think it was when I left the launch party and drove out to actual Kecksburg, I think it was that night that I really became fascinated with the energy of the place. Yeah. Because now again, here I am talking about things that I saw in the sky, but I filmed this one, and this one actually, I put this into the episode, what I filmed. There's not a lot of foreground stuff, but if you look at carefully, you'll see that there's a part where the trees pop up. Mm-hmm. So you could see the trees, but then if you see the trees, then you'll see the light still zigzagging, but the trees are still. Right. Yeah. So that was probably the only reference I was able to grab in that moment of the ambience around it. Mm-hmm. But it was so fast, it was so quick that the way that it happened, and it was exactly what you're seeing, because I'm holding my phone with both arms rested on the roof of my car, trying to hold it as steady as I can. Right. And And so that's what I captured that night. And the energy of it, because I also talk about this a bit in the episode, was, we were driving around, we were looking at some stuff. It was already almost 3:00 in the morning. And we were like, hey, why don't we check out the crash site, see if we can get some footage of the crash site. And if there's enough, moonlight or whatever, I can launch the drone up and we can get some drone shots, of the area. Yeah. That would be really cool. But when I got to the road before it, it was a really, really dense dirt road that I had to drive. I had to idle. That's the only way to drive through it. But about 1/8 of a mile in, it was so dense, and I didn't know what I was going to be looking at or how much further it was going to go. It said like 1.2 miles to go or something like that. And it was that I was like, you know what, maybe we don't do that. So, I don't know if there's no turnabout. And if we have to go backwards, we're going to have to drive the full expanse of this backwards.
Yeah. You're going into some treacherous territory, right?
Exactly.
At 3 or 4 in the morning at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So I went into reverse, and I have a camera on my car, which is great. So I went backwards the whole almost 1/8 of a mile, about 1/8 of a mile. I went backwards, but when I got to the road, again, 3:00 in the morning, it's a really small little town. I almost didn't see that there was a pickup truck right behind me, on the road. But on the road, trying to turn into where I was going. And I was like, well, my car, this car is bigger than my car. That car is not going to make it in there. Or maybe maybe they're here because they know the place. And a million questions, started popping up it's like, hey, and I asked the person, my co-pilot that night. And I was like, hey, so what do you think they're doing? And my co-pilot was like, you know what? Probably the same thing we are.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. So I pulled out onto the road and I took off, and I saw that the pickup truck had its left signal turned on, meaning that it was going to turn into where I just came out of, but it didn't. It ended up taking off full speed in my direction. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. So we get to, one of the side roads and another side road, and now we're back on the main road, and there wasn't a lot of turns.
Yeah.
So, but this car is still behind us. And about 15 minutes in, my co-pilot turns on the camera, and it's like, okay, what's happening right now? I'm like, well, about 15 minutes ago, we took off and somebody was whatever, but now there have been a lot of turns and a lot of different places to go, but the car is still following us. It's still going in the direction that we are.
Right.
What's this all about? And, my co-pilot was like, hey, what if we take, we just get off the road, make a U-turn or make a different turn, not going to the UFO, because we were going back to the Kecksburg UFO store.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, well, why don't we not do that? Why don't we just take a wrong road and see what happens? And I was like, that's a really good idea. Let's see what happens. And, we had changed the plans a couple times or whatever, but then finally there was a roundabout. And instead of taking the second exit to the roundabout where I was supposed to take, I took the very first one. And the pickup truck did exactly what I did.
Oh, Jesus.
So they were clearly not going to the UFO store like we were going. Now they're going in the same direction that we're going. And immediately I turned into the first driveway, which was a business. It was a gravel driveway. I turned into there as fast as I could. And the pickup truck slowed down. And when it started to slow down, I booked it. I just did a U-turn where I skid on the gravel and I took off in the opposite.
Damn.
Really fast. And right there, when I was facing the pickup truck, I could see the person driving. And I could see all of this energy, and it just felt wrong. It felt wrong.
Jesus.
So I hit the road, and I took off full speed in the direction of still the UFO store, but making wrong turns and trying to jump in and out of different areas. And I could see them trying to follow us.
Jesus Christ, dude!
Yes, exactly.
This is wild. Oh,
yes,
my God.
A 30-minute chase, and right when I did the U-turn, my co-pilot again turned on the camera on me. It's like, well, they're definitely following us. This is what's happening right now, blah, blah, and we just kept going. And I took off full speed. We got to the UFO store, and we pulled up behind it, turned off the engine, turned off the lights, turned off everything, because we still wanted to try to get our shot of the acorn. With a drone, we wanted to get a drone shot of the acorn at night.
Right.
And we get to the UFO store, we park behind the building, turn off the lights, turn off everything, open the windows a little bit so we can listen. And you can hear in the distance the pickup truck going back and forth. And then about 10, 15 minutes later, it got quiet. And about 10, 15 minutes after that, my co-pilot was like, all right, let's get the shot and let's get out of here. So we launched the drone really fast. And in the middle of launching the drone is when I see this light in the sky. And I'm like, what's happening? What is this place? This is incredible. And it's like, and funny enough, now Stan Gordon actually has reached out to us about our episode. He loved it. He was really, really great about the way that he described the episode and what he enjoyed about it and how well it was. We wrote our stuff and we put it together. And he also wants to talk to me about that night because he thinks that there were other people seeing something similar that same night.
Yeah.
There was other things happening around then. So I told him that Bridget was in touch with him, and she told him the date that I was there and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be talking about what that is, which will be very interesting. But yeah, this happened all in the same night. And because my plan was like, get to the UFO store, do some B-roll, and then literally take a 3-4 hour nap and then hit the road back to Florida. Well, no, I ended up just taking off and jumping on the road to Florida at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we booked
when you got to West Virginia.
Yeah, we just kept going until we were like a good amount of miles into West Virginia. And we felt safe.
What do you think? What do you think the nature of that truck was?
It was definitely something nefarious.
Certainly,
but I can't tell you to what degree.
Right. Could have been someone just trying to like rob you guys or something in the middle of the night.
It could have been that. Sure.
Yeah.
It could have been that. It could have been
terrifying.
It was definitely very unnerving.
Yeah.
And we kept it really cool and we kept it really calm and we made smart decisions, to avoid any kind of problems. But when I saw the person, I knew that they were definitely up to no good. And especially if they were following us, but like it was one person in their car. If you're going to antagonize people in a car, you don't know how many other people are in the car in front of you. Right. Yeah. This person was very confident that they were going to keep following us as much as they could, because even after the mega U-turn, it still tried to follow it. It was just an older truck and it wasn't able to make the U-turn as fast as I was. Yeah. And take off. So it got stuck a little bit. It took it a little bit longer to turn around. Yeah. But they would have continued. I'm assuming, of course, they would have continued following us. And they weren't interested in UFOs, apparently, because when we got to the UFO store, they didn't go back there.
That is really something else. That's a freaky story, dude. Yeah. You kept your cool though. I don't know. I'd be freaking out. Oh, we lost Bridget now. So
hey, Bridge, come back.
She'll come back. Wow, that's really something else, dude. I'm kind of shook just hearing that story because I'm putting myself in that position and I'm just like, I'd be freaking out, dude. I'd be freaking out. But it's just I don't know. It's just weird. You must have had out of state plates, right?
We did. Yes.
Yeah. There you go. So
I had Florida plates on my car.
Yeah. Probably Rick came across some good old boy like in the middle of the night and it's like, I'm going to chase these guys out of town. Yep. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes.
So
it was like.
That's crazy, dude. That is really that's really wild. Now, as I said, people are going to be hearing this in September because I'm taking the month of August off. And so by the time they hear this, you can spoil it for me. What they're going to be able in September to be able to check out the August episode. So what is what can they go to right now? Because it's September. It's very confusing for me. and see on the Eerie Echoes page. What's episode 3?
Episode 3 right now, when they go to the page, is so the little secret that we have going on is on the very first episode, the news section talks about UFOs.
Yeah.
The second episode, the news section, talks about cryptids. So the next episode is going to be, so the news, basically the news segment of the show talks about what the next show is going to be about.
I like
and
that.
So the next episode is going to be about cryptids and some rather incredible Pennsylvania area cryptids. Not just Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and not just, the typical, Amish folklore or local folklore kind of things. Or, even the older Native American, folklore and stuff like that. Not just those things, but, and I'll actually have, and Ms. B will definitely actually talk about what this is. But in the middle of getting interviews together, Ms. B talked to a neighbor. And the neighbor, they were just talking back and forth. And the neighbor described that she said that she saw something that was rather unnerving years back. And she described it as this skeleton-like bird with see-through wings that was massively huge, 15 to 20 feet.
Oh, wow.
And she literally asked Bridget, Miss B, have you seen anything like this around here? And this is in the area where Miss B is. And Miss B was like, no, I haven't seen anything like that. But the woman described it. And this was an older, quiet woman, living in the countryside, kind of thing. She's not looking for anything scandalous or crazy or whatever, but she was very nervous about sharing the story. But she shared a story about Thunderbird, and interestingly enough, there's a lot of Thunderbird sightings in Pennsylvania historically, and it goes back obviously into, First Nations time, and it's so fascinating. And there are parts of the interviews that Ms. B did at the UFO festival that we didn't air because they were more related to what this episode is about, which is cryptids.
Yeah.
And there's a woman out near Pittsburgh who actually is a bit of a repository of Thunderbird sightings. She's basically collected quite a few of them and knows a lot of stories about different sightings. Different people have seen it, and they've seen it north central Pennsylvania, in the Pennsylvania wilds. They've seen it near bigger towns like Williamsport.
Yeah.
For the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, they have a list of sightings that they can basically, you can map out by time, things like that. And we actually put these all on a map so that we could see where the concentration of this stuff was. Because I don't know the names of the towns and stuff as well as Bridget does. So when we did, there was a really good concentration of Bigfoot sightings out like southwest of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, which is, a bigger town there, but it's not, it's not Philly, it's not Pittsburgh.
Right.
And, but there was a good concentration of Bigfoot sightings throughout the years there. And then digging in deeper, we looked at all kinds of stuff. There's the Susquehanna seal, which somebody feels that they have actually figured out what it could be because they found fossils of, extinct animals for, millions of years or whatever, or at least hundreds of thousands or whatever. And that were exactly shaped and perfectly described as people have described the Susquehanna seal, which is like very similar to like a plesiosaur, a Loch Ness monster kind of thing. Yeah. Is that kind of a creature, but they basically were able to describe what it is. And this has been around for, again, since before, America was colonialized.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting word. Yeah.
There you go. You got it. Now, Bridget, just to catch you up. So we jumped to episode 3 because, as I said, the people are listening to this in September, so they can catch episode 3 on the Erie Echoes channel now. So and so you're getting into unique cryptids. I like that a lot because it's there are obviously Chestnut Ridge has a rich history of Bigfoot sightings. My favorite case of all time is, and I know my friend Steve Berg's a huge fan of this one too, is the and Stan Gordon's the one who investigated it, made it famous. It's the one where the guy saw I'm probably going to mess this up, but he saw a UFO. Then he saw 2 Bigfoot crouching along the fence. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he shot at the Bigfoot, and the UFO took off or whatever. It was one of those crazy stories where worlds collide of Bigfoot and UFOs, and makes you really think there's got to be something more to this than aliens from another world and an ape creature running around. How do these 2 things converge in this field in Pennsylvania? It really makes you take a step back and think about the profound strangeness of all this stuff.
And Stan, in the next episode, because I had the opportunity to interview him not only about the UFOs, but for this episode, but for the next episode that we have in August, he talks a little bit about that and what he saw and how he got the call and all that stuff, and it was really a fascinating story. Yeah,
it's like I said, it's probably my favorite case. I think somebody asked me on a show once if I have a favorite case, and that would probably be it.
Right.
Just because combines 2 of my favorite topics. So you've done sort of the ghost, you've done the UFOs, you've done the Bigfoot. I was really blown away reading the article, the now iconic Woman to Launch Paranormal Podcast article. That you guys said Bridget, you say you sat down and mapped this out this season. How many? Give me sort of an idea. Obviously, I don't want you to spoil anything or anything like that, but sort of how far out have you guys kind of? And Diego mentioned this too when he came up to visit you at the theater. You guys kind of sat and just wrote and wrote and wrote. So you must have a lot of ideas for where this is going to go.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. We have episodes that are going to be going through December. Then we start back up in April of next year, and have a couple different ideas. One of the big things that I want to do is I want to do some stuff around Lilydale, New York.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's a community that's up there. October is my birthday month. So we're working on something special for October. And honestly, the reason why, when Diego was like, when do you want to drop it? What day of the month? I was like, I want to do the last Friday or the last Thursday of the month because Halloween's on a Thursday this year. So I figured that'd be the perfect way to segue into things. So, we're going to be doing some stories about hauntings and talking about, I have an associate that used to actually book Ed and Lorraine Warren out for speaking engagements. So I'm going to be speaking with him and interviewing him. I have an associate that had an instance that is an Amazon, that's going to be on Amazon Prime now. So we're going to be interviewing him. And just Ghosts of Christmas Past. We're really trying to just have fun with this and bring different stories to the table. Because the one thing, when Diego and I were talking about it, the one thing that we both agreed is, one, it's very rare to see a female lead in this stuff.
Right.
You see it here and there, but to be and it's not, please don't mistake me as saying that I'm over Diego in any way, shape, or form, because we're definitely a partnership in this, but Diego has made it very purposeful that I'm the one that's out there doing the interviews. I'm the one.
Absolutely.
In making these connections with the people, but also we didn't want to tell the same stories over and over again. They've been told.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, what you're doing is very different. I really like it a lot. Content wise, like I said, the on-site stuff, the visual presentation is tremendous. It's really professionally done. Even just talking to you tonight, because this is I've been doing this for 20 years, but it's still kind of amateur hour. I get you can see my weed whacker box in the background of the show. But you mentioned having a production table out at the cemetery, and I'm like, all right, these guys are legit. So, and you're absolutely right, Bridget, about having a woman as the front person of these of the show. You know, it's a different take on things, and it's appreciated, and it's important, and it's awesome. We need more of that.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're going with this. We definitely want to have fun and share the unique story and honor people's stories and experiences. And, you know, I mean, come on, who else when they're getting ready to announce the release of their video podcast would put in Zorblorg, the Melodramaticus, as the main character of the ad. You know, so yeah.
Well, like I said, the level of professionalism and level of detail and it just everything you guys are doing is tremendous. I'm really a huge fan, and I think it's gonna really take off as more episodes come out, and I want more people to check it out. That's why we got you on the show. Now it sounds like you're looking to get into New York. You're gonna expand beyond Pennsylvania and do some other areas. I don't want to spoil anything, but you did kind of give away in the article what's going on in October. You're talking, we'll just do it. New Orleans. You're talking about going to New Orleans?
We were originally talking about New Orleans because, like I said earlier, that is my soul city. When I die, I will be a magnolia tree in the Garden District. Oh. So if you visit me, you can sit in the little bench as long as there's a gin martini and a to-go cup for me.
All right.
But I've been so overwhelmed and humbled by the response locally that I really want to, this first year, really pay ode and thank the people who have been doing this for us. So Halloween will be happening in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We talked at length last night about some different possibilities that will be being announced soon to make it more of not just a podcast or an episode, but more of an experience for people. And it's just kind of, I live in this really small town that doesn't, like, people are so quick to write it off, and to have the community and even in Williamsport, just all of a sudden want to surround me and Diego and lift this show up. It's only the right thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Well, Pennsylvania is a wonderful place for paranormal strangeness. I'm from New England, so obviously I'm biased there, but I'm also a huge fan of West Virginia. I love West Virginia because that's like, just touched by something. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I'm a huge fan. You talk about being a magnolia tree, Miss B. Someday, when I'm really old and I'm like, all right, I'm getting the fuck out of New England because it costs too much to live here. I'm probably going to West Virginia because I find it just to be an enchanting, strange place.
Oh yeah.
And so maybe you'll eventually get over to there because that's pretty close to Pennsylvania. Anyway.
We're looking at that a lot, actually. Allegheny was something that we were looking at.
Yeah, we're looking at the Trans-Allegheny. What was it?
Lunatic Asylum.
Yeah.
I visited there a couple years ago. It's really cool. And also, I'd be interested in seeing what you could do, Diego, in Flatwoods, because in Flatwoods you can't go to the actual site. But if you had that drone, you might be able to get a look at what's where it all went down. Because it's like in someone's backyard. You can't even. We drove up the road. I had a road trip with some friends, and we drove up the road, and it's like you can get about 100 yards or so away, but there's a house, and it's West Virginia.
Yeah,
it's West Virginia, man, big time. So it's like I don't know if I want to knock on this door and ask if I can go hang out in these people's backyard, even though I really love to do it. It just didn't seem like a very.
It's funny you say that because by the time people are listening to this episode, the upcoming episode. We had a very interesting situation with a drone trying to film a rather known haunted location. And I won't give it away too much, but basically what happened is that I had been filming with my drone for the whole day. for days at this point. And I fly my drone in ADI mode. As if anybody flies drones, they know that basically it's like manual mode almost.
Okay.
And so I flew it. So when we got there, we saw that there was people in front of the house that we were going to film.
Yeah.
And Miss B immediately was like, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. These clearly aren't the people that were there when these occurrences happened. So let's not, tip them off, or let's not be the ones to bring this to their table,
Right.
So Ms. B's segment was shot down the street in front of the street signs and stuff like that said where we were, more or less. And when she did, after she did her thing, I was like, okay, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to launch the drone from here. Well, we went to another parking lot. So we're going to launch the drone from there. I'm going to take it straight up. I'm going to fly it over to the house, which is about 400 feet right in the air. I'm going to fly it to the house. And then when it gets to the house, when I'm going to make sure that I'm directly in front of the house on the street. And then I'll drop the drone full speed all the way down to about 8 to 10 feet off the ground, angle the camera so that I can get that beautiful lifting shot. And we're good. It'll take maybe 2 minutes at the most. Good. This was our plan.
Maybe take 2 minutes.
Yeah. So I took off. I went up exactly like I said. I flew my drone towards the house. And when I got to the airspace of the house, I lost my screen. Everything went blank.
Oh, shit.
You should have seen the look of sheer terror on his face when he said, oh my God, I lost my drone. I'm like, what are you talking about? You lost your drone.
So then about 20 seconds later, it says, coming home. And then my screen turns back on. I'm like, okay, well, cool. Well, you know what? Let me stop it from coming home. I'm going to try the shot again.
Yeah.
I tried the shot 4 times and exactly the same thing happened every single time.
Wow.
And the thing is that earlier that day, we had shot in another location that will be featured in the upcoming episode. And there was a famous church that's located in this beautiful, incredible, very eerie kind of place. Some people have heard of it. And I launched it in front of this church that had the terminal, but basically the light post that was there was a terminal for almost all electricity in the area is what it looked like. Because there was so many lines going in that, and I'll show this in the episode, that when I got to the height of the electric lines, of the power lines, the footage in my camera footage from the drone, it starts waiting. From the electrical energy field in the area, So it was something. And it wasn't like that when I went to this other place. And I couldn't get to the airspace of the house. It would not let me do it. I tried 4 times. And then, 10 minutes later, we drove out to the river where one of the Susquehanna River flows through this place as well. And I launched it and they took it off, beautiful moon, everything like that. I flew all around the river to the other side of the river. It was big, wide, beautiful river. And I flew it for 20 minutes without a problem, but I just could not get footage from the house.
That is really remarkable. That is really interesting because you hear so many and see so many accounts of ghost hunting with all this different equipment and everything. But that, I think, is the first time, certainly the first time I've ever heard a story wherein perhaps whatever this energy is impacted that type of equipment. So that's a really, really interesting and unique account. That's really, really something. I'm blown away by that.
I have no doubt that the energy from that place infected his equipment, because when he says we were shooting it off all day, we were not a problem. Yeah. I mean, we'd have little glitches here and there, but it was because of the electrical lines and stuff.
Yeah.
And the river wasn't even 10 blocks from where we were shooting.
Wow, that is so weird.
Yeah.
I was afraid you were going to say that you flew the drone, but as the story went on there, I was afraid you were going to say you ended up causing a power outage in the town.
Oh no.
When you said you flew up to the thing with all the wires, I'm like, oh shit, Diego's gonna fucking cause a blackout in this town with his drone. And Miss B and him are gonna have to get the hell out of town.
Yeah, really fast.
Chase out of town again by another mysterious truck. Oh man. That is really something. You guys are doing some tremendous work. I'm really impressed by it. If you ever expand further out off the map, if you ever want to come up to New England, you let me know. You're
next year. That's our plan for next year. We definitely want to do New England.
Yeah, and get in touch with me and let me know what you're interested in, because there's a lot of stuff here, but there's also, as Miss B said in the article, everybody does Salem, and it's like Salem's good, but there's a lot. It's kind of overdone, you know what I mean? So it's a little, and it's super touristy, but there's a lot of other interesting places, like America's Stonehenge is kind of weird up here. And, there's stuff in the Bridgewater Triangle, not really easy to sort of track down, but you got your Lizzie Borden house and other places like that, big time UFO events out in Western Mass. So if you ever, like I said, if you guys ever want to get up here and take a road trip, you just let me know. We'll definitely, work together on something, but
we would love that. Yeah,
I'm really impressed with what you're doing now, Miss B. The theater, you own the theater? Is there a ghost?
No. I manage it. So the theater, there is a nonprofit in the town that purchased this theater because the Arts Council that owned it wanted to sell it. And when I say that the town I'm in right now, people will knock it really quick because there's not a lot in the town. But the theater is one of the things that these people were really dedicated to making sure stayed in the town. And so my background, obviously, I met Diego when I worked at Penn College. So I was a student activities coordinator there. And when I left there, I actually left there to go work for an entertainment company out of San Francisco that does college booking entertainment.
Oh, wow.
So I worked for Metropolis Management like almost 15 years and would book these acts all across the country, and I've worked with a band, the B Twins out of Iowa. So I have a background in event planning and entertainment. So that's why they approached me to manage this theater.
Gotcha.
So I'm the manager. I get to, I'm the one who gets to be the steward of this beautiful little historic theater. And the woman who owned it before, there was a family connection with a couple members of the Rekindle the Spirit organization. And I always joke that Lou's there because like the water will randomly decide that it wants to trickle for no reason because it's completely off. And you just like, I walk in and I say hello to her. And when I leave, I say goodnight to her. And it's just because she was the one, like everybody called her Aunt Lou because she's the one that made sure everybody was okay and they were following the rules when they were at the theater.
Gotcha. Yeah. Interesting. Have you ever seen anything like an apparition or anything in the theater while you were there?
No, but it's more of a feeling that
it's a sense.
Yeah. And it's not that it's anything that would be creepy because she loved that place.
Right. Yeah.
So whatever energy is there, I believe it's her. I believe it's from her, and it's just making sure that it's being taken care of properly. Now, I wouldn't want to make her mad because she loved that theater. She owned it for 32 years, 33 years. Yeah. And
so you guys done filming? Or are you going to keep for the season, or are you like Diego, you have to head back up to Pennsylvania to film more stuff soon?
Oh, no.
We're just filming on Ms. B is going to be filming her interviews and stuff like that. And then we connect and we do that. But most of the B-roll footage, the stuff that was the drone shots for the next episode, the current episode and the next episode, there's a good amount of drone shots showing, just the beautiful scenic and gorgeous landscape that is Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And some of these areas, like the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon, which I didn't even know exists until I was there. It's like, and it's massive gorge, and it's beautiful. Just the expanse of the entire place is gorgeous. And we were able to get some really beautiful drone shots from there. So just, all of that kind of stuff is already done because, like I said, we had already written we wrote the first 7 episodes. Mm-hmm. We wrote the first 4 episodes, and we planned the remaining 3 for the rest of the year.
Okay.
And so this year we'll have 7 full episodes. We originally wanted to keep them at about 20 minutes, which we did for the first one. But this last episode, I thought, Miss B and I were like, there's too many important things to talk about. I don't want to condense this into 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we let it be what it was, We got all the good stuff and we put it all together. But there's a lot of stuff that didn't make it into the episodes. But they have their place coming up.
Yeah.
For the Barclay Cemetery episode, stuff that didn't make it on there was some of the EVP recordings that we did.
Oh, wow.
Now, we didn't put them on there for a few reasons. One, we couldn't really make out what it was doing, but when we both heard it, we both heard train sounds, but they were very faint. So the idea was to bring it back to my studio and scan it into my studio, get it into my system, and then do some spectral analyzing on it to try to remove some of the wind, some of the other stuff that was there, and see how much, what we're actually hearing in there. So there'll be some of that happening later on in the year. And then my TV just turned on. Sorry.
All kinds of ghostly activity.
And so the episodes, they have all these different parts that we've already filmed. We did a good amount of stuff in the wilds. We got some beautiful river shots day and night, which was really great. Because the cryptid episode that's out now, when people listen to this, it's, we go into some very interesting cryptids.
Yeah, that's what. I'm. As I said, we're taping this at late July, and people will be hearing it in September. And I'm already like, I want to see this episode. This is crazy because I'm a big fan of the unique, different cryptids, and this Thunderbird story sounds really, really remarkable. So,
and the thing with
awesome.
Thunderbird is that a lot of it is based in Native American religious ceremony. So that's why a lot of people might not have heard about it because, it's very, they keep it very close and very sacred. So that's the one thing that we want to make sure when we're discussing it, that, it is a Thunderbird, but it's also, this is these people's religion. And they're, really excited about that. Really excited to share my Bigfoot experience or whatever it was. I don't know if it was a Bigfoot or an Alpha Twitch or, just some random drunk person, but.
All right. So that's a good tease. All right. So that's interesting. Oh, wow.
And there is a festival that I'm going to on Saturday. It's a cryptid festival in Elysburg, Pennsylvania. Okay. So that's on Saturday, and I'll be getting some interviews from there as well.
Nice. Is that the Albert Witch Festival or no?
No. This is a Cryptid and Bigfoot Festival.
Nice. Yeah. There's a lot of West Virginia and Pennsylvania are rife with Bigfoot and paranormal festivals. It's like, again, if I there's like nothing up here. You'd be stunned. It's really a couple of ghost events, Exeter UFO Festival, and that's really it. And I see these things for where you guys are, and I'm like, oh man, if I lived in that area, I'd be going to a festival like every 2 weeks. This sounds amazing.
I know. And it's just like I've had people just reach out. We had a person who reached out and was like, I love your show. I want to make a t-shirt for it. We had another person. Yeah, we had another person reach out and they're like, oh, hey, this person's doing a book signing. Can you make it? And I was like, unfortunately, I can't because, I had something else going on. And they're like, oh, but I'll put you in contact with them, and came back to me with all these people that they had met at this book signing to talk to. And so, yeah, people are becoming invested in it, which is really cool.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Well, I'm completely blown away by what you guys have done. It's really tremendous. As I said, the kids met surrounding this episode is really tremendous and odd and kind of like if I hadn't Googled, if I wasn't looking for paranormal news stories that day, I mean, it's my job, so I would have been anyway. But if that one hadn't popped up on the Google, I never would have connected with you guys. And I'm so glad that I did, because what you're doing is so awesome. It really is. It really, really is. It's so professional. It's so well produced. There's a passion there, and there's a care that you can just feel. There's a care for the subject and for the people that you're talking to and talking about, and the stories and the history there. So, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, chatting with me.
Thank you so much.
And I'm so glad that our paths have crossed, because I consider Eerie Echoes with Ms. B a friend of Binnall of America now, and hopefully it'll definitely not be the last time we chat going forward, because what you guys are doing is awesome. And I've said this to other people on the show, where it's like we're just and I mean it for you guys too, especially. The paranormal needs more folks like you guys. We're lucky to have you. We're lucky that you guys have decided to jump into the scene, because you're producing such quality content with the kind of care that the subject really deserves. So, that's really, it's really awesome and appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Because that is one thing that Diego mentioned this to me last year. Was it around Thanksgiving? Beginning of December. It's like, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? And I was like, because it just didn't register with me. And then in thinking about it, I was like, sure, but we have to have a conversation and make sure we're on the same page, because I don't want to be somebody out there and neither does Diego, that's just like sharing somebody's story for their own glory. Because that's what turns a lot of people off, I think, about certain things and about certain programs. And it just seems like, you guys are just in it for the money and the glory. Oh yeah, because we're making so much money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah.
Great misconception of the paranormal that there's any money to be made in this. But it's but yeah, I'm a huge fan. So hopefully we'll chat again in the future, and let's definitely all keep in touch. And if I can ever help you out, you let me know, and hopefully there'll be in the future some kind of Eerie Echoes New England episode or two.
Absolutely.
You guys will hang out up here in New England. And on that note, thank you guys so much for coming on the show, and best of luck with everything. And folks can find out more on Linktree/Eerie Echoes Show, or just go on the Google machine and punch in Eerie Echoes with Miss B, and you'll find it. It's a unique name and easy to find. And there are, again, I also want to commend you guys, just the rollout of all this, like just awesome. Like I read in the article, I'm like, a fucking launch party? They're having a launch party? Like, these guys are for real. This is awesome. So, and then, you rolled it out, and then it's on every different thing. And I'm like, holy shit, they have better distribution than Binnall of America. And I've been doing this forever. So it's really awesome. You guys you're doing awesome work, and best of luck, and let's connect again in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.